one time, my first Friendsgiving with my friends when we were all like 17, this one kid, everyone else was just like, yeah, we're going to show up sober and just hang out and make dinner. And this one guy showed up actually rolling on Molly. And he's like, yeah, I almost got in a wreck on the way here.
Okay. And on note,
someone clap.
welcome to the Outside Noise Album of the Month podcast for the month of November. My name is Kalen, and I'm joined by Carrie, Michael, and Julia. And this month we are talking about all 5 of our albums of the week that we discussed on our Patreon exclusive Album of the Week podcast. And this month we're also doing something a little special. It's the end of the year, so we are also going to be picking out our Album of the Year.
Yes, I'm super excited.
Yes, we have a lot to talk about today, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. We are going to do the Album of the Month for November first. I'm just going to go through these chronologically. We'll kind of talk about each of the records. Just to kind of start us off, I'll go through the list here. We have from November 1st, What If We Had No Money and Just Shared Everything by Decapitation in the Food Court. From November 8th, we have From the Heights of Our Pasture Land by You Do Right. From the 15th, we have Check, 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 Check by Julian Mayorga. From the 22nd, we have Petals by Warm Currency. And from the 29th, we have Gadir by Sandy Chamoun, Anthony Sayoun, and Jad AOTY. Great. So we have a lot of stuff to talk about. Let's just get started with Decapitation in the Food Court.
Hell yeah. I was very excited to listen to this one. This was the first podcast I ever missed.
Wow. We've been doing this podcast for over a year also,
Yeah.
so it's surprising that you made it to all
Carrie's
of the others.
got a very good attendance record.
Listen, if there's one thing I'm going to do, it's show up. Whether I'm going to be good or not is a total toss-up, but I'll be there.
You usually show up very prepared. You did the reading, the listening.
You know? But I loved Decapitation. I loved getting into it and becoming familiar with it to get ready for this pod. So fun. All over the place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very high energy. I say this was sort of like a noisier take on jazz rock, but I think that this is actually a jazzier take on noise rock. I know that's a very subtle distinction, but I think it's relevant to say.
Yeah, I mean, is that not just what the genre art punk is?
Art punk
is kind of nothing. I feel
art punk can be a lot of things.
I noticed it like people
Mm.
mostly slap that on projects that are what you said, like a jazzier version.
Yeah.
I mean, it ends up coming across a little more jazzy.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's just what I've noticed.
Yeah, totally.
This reminded me a little bit of like The Garden, but not quite so self-indulgent.
You said it's less like weird for the sake of being weird. It's more genuine, I guess.
Yeah.
I know these people are weird.
Yeah.
Y'all are really weird.
I think they're really weird in real life.
But they don't sound unlike The Garden at the same time.
Yeah, they don't sound like they went to NYU or whatever,
Right.
wherever The Garden went to.
Did they go to NYU?
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
I
Or
bet
like
they did.
Juilliard or
Yes.
something.
God.
This one thing I noticed about this album too is that a lot of stuff from this genre can also be a little more conceptual or tell a story that's a little more like invented, I guess. But this album feels pretty personal. It talks about the artist's individual struggles with trying not to kind of pigeonhole themselves and still being compared to other experimental musicians. Specifically, like Black Country New Road is an artist that they shout out on the album. So I feel like kind of having that layer of relatability beyond just like meandering storytelling, it's a little more specific and personal.
Yeah, if we're in the era of artists like Olivia Rodrigo and Charlie XCX explaining what it's like to be super famous or to be like mid-level famous, then this album is an explanation of what it's like to be a working artist who has to do it part-time because they don't have a big audience.
Like anti-famous.
Right.
Yeah, anti-famous.
So, and it talks a lot about that. Like imposter syndrome, it talks about just the irritation with other people like kind of falling out of a lifestyle and kind of figuring out how much this means to you and how much you're willing to sacrifice for it. So, and I know a lot of our listeners might be in a similar boat, so I think this would be relatable it's relatable to us. So
yeah, and the feeling of like wanting to be liked and welcomed within a scene, but also wanting to do something different.
Right.
And
Yep.
yeah, it's very, very nuanced in that regard. I really liked this record, and like musically, it's total chaos all over the place. Super, super fun.
Yeah. All right, moving on.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I don't know if we don't have anything else to say.
Yeah, no, I feel like that was great. Yeah.
Totally. Michael, do you want to talk about From the Heights of Our Pasture Land by
Yeah.
You Do Right? Because I think this was one you really enjoyed.
Yeah, I kind of spearheaded this one being on here, but From the Heights of Our Pasture Land by You Do Right. This is, I think anytime that, I don't even know if this word is used often, but the phrase Montreal-style post-rock is how I would describe this. And that doesn't really exist because there's a million post-rock bands in Montreal, and most of them have a member of Godspeed You Black Emperor in them and sound kind of like Godspeed You Black Emperor. But that's what the style would be. And this follows in that, but does its own thing to the point where it's not like these people are like trying to be Godspeed You Black Emperor. Where this differs is it is also very focused on like krautrock and even a little bit on like space rock. So it has at the moments where it dies down, it doesn't die down into nothingness. The tracks will die down from their like, you know, characteristically big emotional heights into this kind of like rhythmic, hypnotic krautrock, like psychedelic vibe. So I think and the album is kind of loosely following a story of the like encroaching AI takeover and how we're at the moment right now where we can tell that something huge is about to happen, and it's started happening, but it hasn't become impossible to ignore yet, and it hasn't really like started destroying people's lives yet, but we know it will, and there's nothing we can do about it. So like literally the album cover is a tornado in the distance, and it's like if you have a tornado in the distance approaching you and you live in a place where that's common, you know there's pretty much nothing you can do. Like if you get in a car and drive, that's almost worse because the tornado could speed up and pick up your car. If you don't have a basement, you just go back inside and hope for the best. So that's kind of the encroaching AI revolution. Is that we can see the tornado at this point, but we have nowhere safe to go.
Yes, I feel like this album was very timely in its commentary, specifically about the AI and technology stuff, and musically timeless, too. So it
for sure
pulls from those the genres that you mentioned, the post-rock stuff, but it does it in a way where, incorporating more of those like krautrock elements kept it really interesting for me, because sometimes I get a little bored listening to the like really, really long like post-rock like jammy riffs. I'm like,
right.
Yeah,
it has like highs and lows.
Yeah.
Cool. It is a very dramatic album as well, but it's cool.
Yeah. I personally think post-rock should never be jammy, and I think most like Godspeed stuff isn't, but I could understand why you might think it is, because it's so just like off the wall and weird. It's like there's no way they planned this, and it's like, well, they probably mostly did, but I get why you're like, I get lost in the weeds, because that there is a lot of room for that to happen.
Well,
but
right.
not on
it's
this
often like
as
long
much.
form and slower as well, much like jam bands.
Yeah, and in its spaces in between its emotional highs, Godspeed is kind of known for having spaces where almost nothing happens, which is where it kind of does sound like improvised a little bit, and to an extent it might be, but it just goes away into like there's like no real motif dominating. It's just like little sounds of people picking up and putting down their instruments and stuff. And this kind of keeps that from happening. They probably had a little bit more of a like, okay, we're gonna end this take here and pick up afterwards.
And then it does this.
Gets a little bit more produced.
Yeah. No, it was super cool. I loved You Do Right.
cool.
And they are actually from Montreal. So.
But no members from
no
Godspeed.
members from Godspeed that I know of. I don't. Usually, when there is a member from Godspeed in a project, it's like everyone's like makes a deal out of it in the Bandcamp description. But
yes,
that did not happen here, so I don't think so.
Doesn't Godspeed have their own studio in Montreal?
They almost certainly do.
I wonder if that's where this was recorded.
That's possible. I mean, the original Godspeed studio was just Ephraim Manouk's department, and I don't know if they ever actually. I don't know. It would not surprise me at all if they have their own, and it wouldn't surprise me if this is where that was recorded. But and also, it's tough to not have a post-rock band with a member of Godspeed in it in Montreal, because over the time that the band has existed, there have been like 30 members of Godspeed that have been in and out. But I think this is really all fresh faces. So
all right.
Yeah.
Another artist that is not a fresh face. He's put out a good handful of albums, but he's new to us. Julian Mayorga with Check 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 Check.
Yeah, this album was super cool. This was my pick that week. Just super fun, kind of surreal. They call it post-cumbia psychedelia. Very much so, very bright and colorful. It has moments of like big band stuff and also like circuit bent electronics and shit. It kind of does a little bit of everything. It's very cool. It has a sort of anti-work anarchic theme going through it. Imagining sort of the Andean region as a maybe like
an anarchist utopia,
socialist, futurist, cool sort of place. Yeah.
This album was so great. I enjoyed talking about this sort of in the context of also experimental music and listening to it as someone who's not familiar with cumbia at all as a genre, but being able to really appreciate it and approach it easier because it was like taking influence from a wider variety of sounds.
Yeah. Stuff that you might be more familiar with, or even just experimenting in a way that appeals to you.
Yeah, exactly. It was super, super fun and lighthearted, and because people also hear like politically motivated music and assume that it has to be super serious or super heavy and intense. Like
no,
hardcore
this is
punk or
very like
something.
witty and fun.
Yeah. Like just a fun listen. Just
yeah, they do a lot of fucking around on here, which is great. And I don't know. This is like if Jordy Creep was real.
Yeah.
It's so catchy too.
The real as fuck version of Jordy Creep.
Even though I do not speak the language, like these songs were getting stuck in my head.
Yeah.
I'm just like singing phonetically. Like I don't know what what I'm saying, but all bangers on this one.
Yeah.
Definitely deserve.
I don't really have any further comment. We this is probably one of our biggest oopsies in terms of not reviewing an album. We didn't make a video about it.
Oh
Missed
yeah,
it.
that's true. We actually did not make a video about it, so this might be many people's first time even hearing about this album, even though it won our album of the week.
Go give it a listen. It's
Yeah.
got chicken on it.
It's good. It's got a chicken on it.
It does have
Very
a chicken
fun.
on it.
Very fun and cool. It was good and I liked it. Thank you, Julian.
It was good and I liked it.
Yeah.
And then on the 22nd, we had Petals by Warm Currency.
Petals by Warm Currency, a experimental folk vibe, and it has like
Michael, you know this like goes out like on
I know it
YouTube
goes out.
publicly. He's you're like fuck it.
yeah, so it has like a kind of like cobwebbed kind of like almost I don't know. We get a lot of these vibes in the folk world, but this album kind of does it more through its songwriting than through its production of having a kind of like old kind of like found, not necessarily found footage, but they have a lot of these like esoteric weird samples and stuff, and the lyrics are very like out there, but also kind of emotionally cohesive enough that it makes the album like listenable. It's not just so esoteric and weird that there's nothing to be understood there. It is communicating something, and yeah, I don't know. It has a kind of just general aesthetic of like decay. It's not a super happy record, but I think it is. You know, it's of conveying that form of like pessimistic depression. It's very strong. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought this one was pretty captivating. I really liked voice.
It sucks you in. It's and like I said, it's pretty minimalist. I guess that would be the way in which it sounds kind of old, is that it's minimalist. It sounds like everything here probably could have been recorded.
It's very subtle. There's like creaking. It does get kind of creepy in that way. Builds some anxiety, but I do really like the like spoken word delivery, like word painting, like you said, kind of just these ideas that string together. Petals was great.
Sorry, we had another very similar album, so I wanted to pull up my review to make sure I didn't accidentally say something that that applied to that other album instead. But
No, you got it. Yeah. Warm Currency, that was the winner for November 22nd. And then up next
we had Gadir by Sandy Chalmoun, Anthony Sayoun, and Jad AOTY. And this album is sort of Arabic post-industrial, I think is maybe the best way to put it. It is heavily drawing from Arabic folk music as well as other contemporary sources from the region. These artists are all from Lebanon, and the album is really about the ongoing genocide in Gaza, and it kind of like distills all of these like extremely heavy emotions and then also like glimmers of hope into this album that is haunting and captivating and really beautiful. Like I haven't heard anything else that's combining this type of like devotional singing with these sort of like Nine Inch Nails type of instrumentals. Not even Nine Inch Nails. It was just the first like industrial reference to pull, but it really goes beyond that into something that's truly unique.
Yeah, and I feel like they're I don't know, the emotion really carries over when you listen to it. That sort of sense of tenderness along with the tension of I guess where they are in Lebanon, and their situation bleeding through as well. But they talk about sort of having not relying on like rhythmic structure and time signature and stuff, but it was rather like common intention and like connection with each other. I don't know. Yeah. It's like a really cool creative way to get your feelings across. I think it was done really well.
And thematically it's interesting because like if you look at their like artist statement, they weren't really setting out to make like an album about war, but they were like, well, we live in Lebanon, there's really nothing else, like it's gonna invade everything that we talk about. Even explicitly ignoring it would be a way of talking about it, like a way of trying to do escapism.
It's so relevant in like everyday life, and I don't know, it's that thing where people do say like, oh, don't talk about it or whatever, but it's like, okay, so you're just gonna ignore it until you can't, like until it becomes part of your everyday life. I don't know. It's just the lack of empathy, I guess. But it was really cool to hear, I guess, they're holding anger and at the devastation and everything, and having a tenderness with one another and like creating a really beautiful album.
That being like the only way to cope with this sort of thing.
And leaning on past references as well. They talk about poems from the 10th century and stuff too. So it's like more and then the history. They're
also quoting like Instagram posts.
At the same time.
Album. This was really, really gorgeous. I'm very glad this album won Album of the Week. I think it was definitely deserved. Cool. Yeah, so I think that those are our albums. Does anyone have any standouts that we're thinking make sense for Album of the Month?
I'm going to probably pick You Do Right. But I think everyone kind of knew that. That's a very Michael-ass album.
Yeah.
I'm between two. I'm between Check, 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 Check and Goddard.
I'm between Goddard and What If We Had No Money and Just Shared Everything.
I'm between Chuck, Chuck, Chuck and Decapitation in the food court.
Oh my god, we're all tied between different
How are we going to figure this out, guys? I'll say I liked Decapitation in the Food Court because I feel like this album kind of captures a little bit of what we do at Outside Noise, specifically covering underground and experimental music, and it's just kind of a snapshot of what it's like to be an independent artist in 2024. Not just independent, but also like an outsider artist, you know. It's like you're not necessarily trying to be independent and reach mainstream commercial success. It's this
is one, as some people would say, it appeals to the back of the room, as to say like when you're at when you're at a show, a lot of times the people who organize it and are like in the innermost circle with the organizers and are in other bands show like sit in the back or just hang out in the back. This goes to the back of the room, and that's kind of a lot of what Outside Noise is appealing to anyway, is those people who are organizing and at the forefront of their musical community and stuff.
Even if they're in the back of the room.
yeah. Well,
front of the community.
You have to be in the back of the rooms. You got the sound. You got to work the door, the bar, all that stuff. So, yeah.
So that's the reason why that appeals to me, because I think it makes the most sense for our editorial voice, as it were.
Yeah. I would say that's a valid reason to pick that. I'm not mad at that justification at all. I think we could go with that. But I don't know. What else does everyone else think?
I mean, I think the sound is fun, unique, interesting, and
loud.
It carries that sentiment very well.
Abrasive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a fun listen.
And this is just like an unfortunate fact of just me not being able to like speak Spanish, but I do have that ability to connect with it more so than the check because I know what they're saying.
I might be wrong, but I think
there is
Spanish on this album.
Yeah, there is some,
but it's
like
not all
it's
of
like
it,
a track or two is in Spanish, but
and that's awesome too. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that just goes to show too how many different like influences these guys are pulling. I love that. Yeah. I love that they're like, we'll put what sounds like cumbia to me. I don't know much about cumbia, but it has that sort of like dance. Sound.
Yeah, it's definitely a kitchen sink kind of vibe.
Yeah,
fun.
Okay, so what do we all think?
Decapitation.
I mean, it sounds like Decapitation is leading the way.
Did I convince you guys?
Well, what? Because Julia was between that and something else.
Yeah, check. Yeah, I mean, we already said it. It's two albums that carry kind of similar-ish sentiments.
Just being exploratory.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty stuck.
Well, you're gonna have to pick. What were you between, Carrie?
I was between check and Goddard.
Goddard's also hard to not pick as well, because it was so impactful, artistically, emotionally, musically. I mean,
it's true. It had its like moments of noise and deterioration.
Yeah. I loved so cool. This is the type of thing I listen to more often. I think in my personal time too. The more like experimental, industrial, electronic stuff.
And check. I just like it's surrealist. Yeah.
Check. It's so fun. It's so charismatic.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, it is a really sweet album. I don't know. I'll throw my weight behind Decapitation in the Food Court if it means we can move on.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Okay. Sure.
Well, I mean, we seem kind of deadlocked, but and Check is a very strong runners-up. It's a great album. I don't dislike any of these. It's not like any of these I begrudgingly co-sign.
There's no stinkers.
Yeah. These are all great stuff. Definitely check out everything we talked about today.
It does occasionally happen. Go listen to our Patreon-only podcast to find me get really mad when we pick a bad album.
Oh my god. There's a few chud-outs.
Yeah. I don't actually get
But hell yeah, Decapitation in the Food Court is our November album of the month.
Congratulations, Decapitation in the Food Court.
Hell yeah.
What if that actually happened? That would be so fucked up. If somebody got decapitated in the food court.
Would that be fucked up or what?
I wouldn't be a fan. Okay,
no,
so
sir.
Now we're going to pivot to our discussion of the previous winners of albums of the month. January through November, I guess, now that we have the November one.
Yes.
And the idea is, our album of the year is going to be one of these because it's kind of a bracket system, and these all beat the other albums that came out that month.
Although last year we did have an upset for album.
Well, yeah, it was an album we didn't even know existed until we went to the artist's show late in the year. So, I mean, but
anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
Well, not right now because we're all sitting here right now, so we're not going to
and we have a list of 11 in front of us.
And,
it's going to be one of those. Not anything can happen.
I will say this. Potentially, I want to put this out there. Our first month of doing album of the month was January. If we're being fully 12 months, we would also include December. I don't have all the albums that we picked for album of the week in front of me, but I think it's highly unlikely that it would be anything but Wet Dream by Willie Rodriguez.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that should also, even though that is technically a 2023 album, we're not considering December of this year, so I think we can consider December of last year. And that would include
But
Wet Dream by Willie
Y'all
Rodriguez.
remember
I
what
just
that
wouldn't
sound like?
call that album of the year 2024 then. You know?
Well, our album of the year 2023 came out before that album came out.
I mean,
so I think
know.
also, do other publications not
other
also
publications do this too.
do that?
Man.
It's fucked up.
Yeah,
But-
Grammys cut off in like November.
Yeah,
as well.
but that shit's crazy. They cut off in like September this
Yeah,
year.
okay, but like, but I think we can do. I think a Christmas Day is close enough to be, which is when it came out.
Okay.
It's
Sure.
close enough to being 20.
Well, let's talk it out, and we'll see if it is even. I think it can go on the list.
Yeah, I'm putting
Let's
it
just
on the
put it
list.
there.
I don't
It
know
goes
if
on
it's
the
gonna.
list.
I don't know if it's gonna go anywhere. But I just wanted to say I wanted to throw that in there.
I mean,
That's
also,
a great-
it's
well,
just
I mean,
like a
that's where we would
standout
start.
album that like has nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
because,
exactly. It had no
yeah.
chance at being 2023 album of the year. So
Well, we
in all
should start
fairness.
there. We could just run through the albums chronologically really quick if you
So
want.
yeah, like quick descriptions.
Yeah,
Wet
Willie
Dream by-
Rodriguez,
Red Dream by
yeah.
Willie Rodriguez. For fans of car seat headrest, like in a huge way. It's the spiritual successor to that. I think it's these two people who were collaborating and now hate each other, so there's never going to be another one of these. And apparently it was big internet drama. These were just people on like a small like indie label, and the leak of the album went out on like Reddit or something, or a Discord, a chain of Discord servers or something. And people got extremely excited because the leaks were like, this might be one of the best bedroom albums ever made. And then the full cut of the album went out, and then the band disappeared. And it is an incredible album. There's like moments of, I mean, like Car Seat Headrest, probably the other heavyweight in this like bedroom slacker rock world. There's like these songs that are just massively lengthy, but cut up into these really consumable, energetic, at times just downright catchy. Like if they just isolated this or that part of these songs and turned them into a verse-chorus structure, they could have been on the radio. Just an incredible album from that songwriting standpoint. Very emotionally deep, and then it still has that kind of dirty finish that you want from like a bedroom record. Really great stuff. Standout, like year defining, whatever. Might be the last gasp of that bedroom rock world. So yeah. I had, I have friends who like aren't super up on new music, but if they were ever into Car Seat Headrest, I recommended it as them, and it was a hit for like all of them. They all loved it.
Oh,
so.
hell
Awesome.
Yeah, that's my barometer if you like it or not, because they take a lot of influence from them, but it sounds distinctly different. And
Yeah, it does. It has these like kind of over the top theatrical ish
Yeah.
moments.
It's like almost like, I know Car Seat Headrest, I guess, has put out more stuff recently, but it's just a more sort of modern.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean it has those same like kind of catchy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see it right
It's a
now.
little
It slips into a bit that's like extremely catchy, and then slips out of it before it can.
Before it gets boring.
Yeah, exactly. Before it can get boring.
I love it.
Like Michael said, really well done.
Yeah.
Great
love
one.
it.
Incredible
Had to
album.
talk about it.
I don't know. I'm a big advocate of this one. I fucking loved it. It was great.
Yeah.
Made me glad. I almost took that whole week off of reviewing things. I'm really glad I didn't, because that came out. So.
Oh, you would have missed it.
Yeah.
This was
Never
all
would've
over your
known.
Spotify Wrapped too, right?
It was on my Spotify
glad.
Wrapped in a couple places. I don't know if Willie Rodriguez. They might have been in my top 5 artists, but the like multiple songs from the album made it in my top 100 at least.
Hell yeah.
Nice. All right, and then in January, our first proper album of the month from 2025 was "There Is a Well"
What?
by Shallow Water.
2024.
2024.
2024. You said 2025.
Ooh.
Yeah. So,
You're right. I see. I have album of the year 2025 written here, but you're so right.
You're seeing
so
into the
right,
Yeah,
Mike.
you're in
Sure.
the future.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah.
There's a Well by Shallow Water.
There's not going to be an album of the year for 2025 because the world's going to end before then, probably.
We can only hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can get it out like it's like before that happens.
Yeah,
So, like if
yeah,
we're like, oh, we're
yeah.
gonna get blown up tomorrow.
We'll get the episode out. Don't worry about it.
Okay, so yeah, so January, there's a Well by Shallow Water. We wanted
This
to talk
is
about it.
really cool.
Yes,
Give
this
it a re-listen today.
This is one of our biggest success stories in terms of, I don't know how big of a role we played in this, but probably not zero.
Right.
But a band
They
that
said not
blew
zero.
up, the band that blew up after we reviewed them.
the video
Hell yeah.
did
The video did
particularly
pretty
well.
Video did numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
But-
maybe we were part of their rise, but this band would have been going places anyway. They're great.
Yeah.
We also now sell tapes for this
I was
band.
gonna
They will
say,
hopefully
yeah.
be on our website soon.
Yeah,
Keep an
within a
eye
couple
out.
days.
That'll go soon, yeah.
That being said, this album is rooted in post rock, but takes a lot of influence from country western music. The band is
Yes.
from Shallow Water, Texas, and it just like scratches both of those itches at the same time. You know, it is like the type of dramatic, sweeping instrumentals that you expect from post rock, but with the influence of like twangy.
I was gonna say it's got a little twang to it.
got a little twang.
Yeah.
I would say more so than post rock. I would think
Yeah.
post rock is not a bad description, but that genre is really broad. I would say in that intersection point between post rock and post hardcore.
Yeah.
So where your
Yeah.
Slint,
Definitely.
where your Drive Like Jehu, where that kind of thing is.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That's kind of where this band lives.
Because there's a very emotional vocal delivery as
There's
well. I
an
think that
emotional
pulls in
vocal
there.
delivery, but that almost comes more from the singer-songwriter kind of like country kind of vibes.
Yeah, it does have this like brightness to it on top of that.
Yeah, it has a bright shimmeriness because of that, but then it also has this post-rock or like post-hardcore, I would say more aptly, side that is not afraid to play around with darkness, to play around with these chords and arpeggios that are a bit sour, that hit on those like suspended notes that are just so famously part of that sound, that kind of make the whole thing like precarious and anxious and stuff like that.
Yeah, this was great. There's another like country crossover album on this list, and I was so glad to see more of that this year. I feel like country music is vastly underrated and underrepresented in the underground, and there's so much richness to draw from there.
Yeah. There were a few pretty standout bands and albums from, and there's one for December as well. Actually, there's a new album by a band called Twine that I could see being our future album of the week for what we haven't done yet. But
Twine is such a good name for your
Twine?
country crossover band.
Yeah.
Twine?
So we're seeing a lot. We're seeing a lot of activity in that sphere, and as the trad country thing has really taken over. I wouldn't say it's fully taken over the country scene, because there's plenty of country songs from this year that aren't traditional.
Like Shabuzi.
Like Shaboozey.
Grammy nominated Shabuzi.
I don't
Anyway.
hate that song, but
I had to listen to it a lot.
That Zach Bryan record was kind of a big moment of
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
Yeah.
of
That had a
like
big moment this year.
it's here, the traditional country, and so it's not surprising, and it is cool to see that is spilling over into more of what we do. So.
It's not all just blue jeans and pickup trucks and red Solo cups. There's more to the very rich country music tradition.
That's cool.
Our album of the month pick for February had pretty much zero influence from country music. It was Shame by Meth.
Shame by Meth. This was
Meth,
another one
period.
I was
I love meth.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know. I thought it would be funny. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it fell flat. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Can someone else talk about the album? I was about to get started. Now I'm embarrassed.
This album is crazy. It is full on high octane, high intensity, like we expect from a band called Meth. I think some of us were already familiar with the band too before covering this. They had a few releases out previously. I think they are also highly underrated.
Yeah.
Should be more respected. I think this album got a lot of worthwhile attention earlier in the year when it came out, but it is being overlooked in these end of year lists, and I'm glad that we're talking about it.
Fuck y'all,
Whoa.
music journalists.
Yeah, this one and one of another one coming up. I'm like, why is no one talking about this?
Why is no one talking about
Why
Meth?
is no one talking about this?
This album,
Seamus
it talks about like addiction and isolation and loneliness and abandonment in such like raw and heavy
It's so doomed.
terms. Yeah, and in such like completely and totally devoid of like hope or optimism.
Yeah, and this and another album we're going to talk about in a bit kind of toy with the concept of like self-blame and how much self-control plays into all of this. So, very interesting. I would say it's like metallic hardcore, just fucking balls to the wall. heavy as shit.
Yeah, this might be the heaviest album that we covered this year.
I don't know that we covered this year, but it's probably the heaviest album on this list.
Oh yeah,
Who's heavier?
It might be actually no, because we
I
got
think so,
a
yeah.
couple coming up that are
Yeah, we
pretty
got some
fucking
heavy
too.
All right.
hitters.
We'll
yeah.
put a pin in that. I think we've pretty much said what we need to say about shame.
Yeah, that's one you might have heard of, even if you don't follow our page.
I hope so. Then in March we had Unrecognizable by Lolina.
Dude, I was so happy. We were in this mood. There was this moodiness going on, this heaviness in our list. And then Lolina came along. It's also dark
Also very dark.
and
I would
kind of
say
heavy,
it's
but
very
it's
dark.
more dancey though. It's more electronic. It's a little weird and buzzy.
It has fun.
Yeah, I
it's,
think it was
Subject
just-
matter is also
yeah.
kind of this fun thing.
Yeah, right? It's kind of a storytelling.
well,
Yeah.
it takes it has as much fun as it can with
Yeah.
a very serious issue.
Yeah, totally. It is still very dark. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying. But
It's
it's
like a
just
very, like,
a little
complete-
different, I guess, than the
Yes.
other two.
It is a audio visual experience.
Yes.
Don't sleep on the comic book that's on Bandcamp. It's actually really cool. It's kind of like a little like I Spy adventure where you have to like click on every like hat that you see in all the frames, and as you click on more of them, it introduces different tracks from the song, like as in like the percussion and the bass
Yeah.
and whatever. And by the end, you've kind of got this really interesting like layered, noisy like just huge wall of sound. Very interesting stuff. And in the comic book theme, it is based on these superheroes who are trying to fight the government as the government is literally turning. Well, I guess the idea is that skyscrapers have always been some covert form of like weapon. And there's no real like world building here to explain how that even works, but just the idea that our built environment is designed to harm us is, a good way to think about the housing crisis. I think that's a lot of what this is born out of. These people are from London, I think, and London is one of the most affected cities in the world. Relatively. Like the income of that country versus the cost of living in London is absolutely absurd difference. So, so the idea that, people who build buildings never have your best interests at heart. Any building that's on the market is designed to hurt you, and might as well be a literal missile. But since it's a place that you could theoretically live if you had enough money, it doesn't feel that threatening.
Well, I was thinking both about pulling from the housing crisis is a really interesting reference point, and then I was also thinking about hostile architecture.
Me too.
Where
Yeah.
it's literally designed like public places are designed for you to not exist there.
Yeah.
Unless you're spending money, maybe.
Got like spikes on the bench.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
Unusable, and like
Yeah.
you get that sense. I guess it could be the building itself or just the people inhabiting the building. But you like walk into an office building and you don't know where to go, and you're not sure like whether everyone's going to be mad that you're there or whether it's going to be fine.
I mean, office
it's
buildings
like that
are
too.
office buildings are designed to intimidate.
Yes.
you.
Exactly.
I mean,
so
yeah.
it's sort of hostile in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, this album was great too, musically very inspired by like trip hop. If you're a fan of Portishead, you will probably like this
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah,
Man, I wish I knew off the top of my head the name of the artist behind this project, because she also has an extensive solo career that's very similar.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I'm
Okay,
on
sure,
it.
sure.
Bring it up.
All right.
Yeah, this was great. This was also all over my Spotify Wrapped. I loved this album. I listened to it over and over and over again. It's so catchy, like dark pop.
Inga
kind
Copeland.
of.
Yeah,
Yes.
Inga Copeland.
But I would say in that it's a brainier and more creative version of that dark pop sound that has absolutely swept the floor with the way that pop music sounds.
Oh yeah, like Billie Eilish or whatever.
Right, yeah.
But this is so big brained,
So cool.
and I loved the interactive element
Yeah.
through their Bandcamp. Certainly worth
Audiovisual
checking
shit
out.
fucking rules. They did a great job.
So awesome. And then April, we were back to a real big bummer with "You Could Do It Tonight" by Couch Slut. I say big
We're
bummer
having a
with all
moody
the
year,
affection
yeah.
in my heart.
Well, the one after this is less of a bummer.
Yes, but "You Could Do It Tonight" is that album I think we were referencing where it is also being kind of snubbed by
Yes.
your list. I think
This
this
is
should
the other
be
one.
much more widely
Yeah,
recognized.
that's
I'm
true.
not seeing around
Yeah.
a lot this at the end of the year, but when it came out,
People were
Yeah,
really
did it
excited.
not have like a moment?
it
Yeah.
had a moment. But
Yeah.
I'm saying like, where is it on the year-end
Yeah,
list?
we're forgetting.
Absolutely one of the best hardcore punk albums to come out of
Yeah,
here.
super,
Yeah.
super
I mean,
weird and hardcore, energetic, but
It is about
sludgy at the same
the
time.
absolute depravity that people can stoop to. It is just a series of stories about people being the absolute fucking worst.
Yeah.
And it will make you misanthropic if you aren't already at this point, which I don't know how you couldn't be. But
That's
so
also a lot of their past discography too.
Yeah.
Is,
Leaning in.
yeah.
leaning in is a good way to put it. Yeah, it is
Sometimes
explicit.
you gotta lean into the spiral.
yeah, especially
I guess.
for, like the
Yeah.
later bits. I think there's a track that I haven't listened to in a long time, and I still remember that's like about this like a boarding school of
Yeah.
people who are just absolutely despicable. That was like a real true story, almost like delivered like a news report.
Yeah.
It's completely fucked. It's I mean it's a great listen, but Jesus Christ, it will make you really mad at people.
Yeah, I forget how much of this is like actually autobiographical. Like,
I think a lot, probably.
Yeah, I don't know about autobiographical, but a lot of it is true.
Well, yeah.
A lot of it is things that actually happened.
Or things that do happen generally.
Right. Yeah, just generally.
I mean, yeah, they talk about everything from like sexual
Verifiably,
assault
yeah.
and self-harm and again also like drug abuse and
Yeah.
it's just all over the place. Yeah, truly all the
True
worst stuff
bummer.
that people go through.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it's
mostly
delivered in the
interpersonal-
first person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mostly interpersonal violence, but also, like you said, self-destruction things as well.
Yeah, interpersonal violence and then also like social violence, just like seeing homeless people on
Yeah.
the street
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
stepping over them and trying your best to not make eye contact because it makes you uncomfortable.
Right. Well, yeah. And the mechanisms that put them on the street.
Yes, yeah, just all of it is all laid bare in gruesome detail.
Yeah.
Great stuff. All that being said, yeah,
Yeah,
obviously
I mean,
it won
it's the
album of the month.
Loved
Really,
it.
really great. Really kind of considering this as a contender for album of the year, maybe after this conversation.
Yeah, it's
Very
good. Also,
strong.
it absolutely deserves more recognition than it's got, as
Yeah.
we said many times.
Consider it at least in the high tens. Good stuff.
For the next album,
I'm so
for,
excited to chat about this
May's
one again.
Album. This is an album that never even got buzz in the first place, and fuck y'all for letting that happen.
So yeah,
Y'all let this one flop.
Listening to this again, I was like, wait.
This album was was nowhere. We had to
But
dig
also,
so
like-
hard to find it, and it was so fucking good. So the album, just to stop fucking teasing y'all with it, is Weezer's Blue Album by Trash Dog.
Well,
This
and
is not
you know,
the real Blue Album by
now
Weezer.
that you say it, I get why it maybe didn't blow up and was hard
No,
to
fuck
find.
y'all. This should have
Because
been,
it's
okay,
called
because it is
Weezer's
it is-
Blue Album.
It is the opposite of search engine optimized.
Right.
No, but it's easy to find it if you type in Weezer's Blue Album. Trash Dog. You just can't search Weezer's
Right,
Blue Album.
right.
You
This
just
is
have
so
to search
funny.
the name of the
This
artist
is
as well.
basically about this guy who, you know, growing up felt like Weezer was the epitome of like cool music, just
Well, it
that in
was-
the
it-
household that he grew
Exactly.
up in.
It was
He
one
wasn't
of
allowed
the
to listen
only,
to a
one
ton
of
of
the only
secular.
things he had access to that wasn't like regular pop or like Christian music.
Right. And so he, you know, thought Weezer was just everything, and so he gets tickets and goes to a Weezer show, and he hates it. He hates the show. He hates
He's
the
like,
people.
these guys are losers.
Yeah,
He
Yeah.
was like in the back.
Realizes-
They have no stage presence.
Right, that-
Everybody here sucks.
that
and they
Weezer's
look and
losers.
smell bad.
And no
It's
one's
just
dancing.
the disenchantment and the like betrayal feelings
Right.
of when you sort of grow up and you realize that your heroes are fake.
Yeah.
The entire album is about like worshiping Weezer and then
Yeah.
realizing that they suck.
But it also sounds so good.
yeah,
sounds
the
so
whole
good.
build up to it because this is like the very last track.
Yes, he
Yeah,
tells
it's kind of a spoiler,
yeah.
but that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, well, whatever, man.
That's what it's about, you know?
Yeah, like it's just all these like funny, like quippy songs.
Yeah,
Love
just
it.
songs that are like this person seems so interested in the idea that if your music is alternative, you have to like live the life. It's like you can't just fucking completely sell out and then make like weird music on the side. So a lot of these songs are like approximations of what this like kind of like almost this person like making like jokes about like what normal music sounds like if you or like what normal concerns, like the small talk that people have with you sounds like if you're just willing to like not take it seriously for 1 second. So it's a very absurdist. The sound it goes in and out of a bunch of different things. It's almost like Mr. Bungley in that way. But,
Yeah.
Baroque
Yeah.
pop.
but there's like some of that. There's some like power pop like
Yeah.
Weezer.
He just
I was
kinda
gonna
does like
say,
a Weird Al thing.
Yeah.
Kind
It's
of.
like it simultaneously takes inspo from them and criticizes them. It's cool. It's like knowledgeable and nuanced.
And it's not like a comedy album. We come
no.
across some like comedy music, and it's hilarious at the same time.
especially the last track.
But
and it
it's
is good.
But
yeah.
it's serious. It's like he's obviously putting a lot of like genuine effort.
All
Yeah,
of
this
was
is a
in
real
earnest. It is
life-
It's
authentic to
earnest.
him.
It's earnest. Yes. It's not just
Yeah.
like it's like
It's like, I
taking
don't
the
want
piss
you
out of this
to
stuff.
laugh at
yeah,
this.
this
is-
experience
yeah.
really changed this person's life.
Yeah.
and when your life is
He was,
changed
like,
by
9.
when your life is changed by Weezer, you can't be that serious about it because that's fucking like
You can't let that get you down.
you just got fucked up, man. You just got your shit rocked by Weezer. That's so embarrassing.
Yeah, this was truly a delight. Highly recommended.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, slept on.
Honestly, out of all of these,
Insanely
maybe
slept
number
on.
one in terms of artist I want to hang out with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
I
got
agree.
like 400 monthly listeners.
I know.
Or
La-
something.
the last honest man
crazy.
in Austin.
Trash Dog, if you want to hang out, we're free on
Yeah.
Thursdays.
Yeah.
Come on up.
Come on up. Come on to Philly. After that,
I like it better here than in Austin.
in June, we're back to back to the gutter with
right.
Ridiculous and Full of Blood by Julie Christmas.
This is a very strong contender for me. What an album.
No,
What a
I was gonna
crazy-
say I would not mind seeing this one be
Right,
album
up
of
there.
the year.
Can I say something controversial?
Well, you made a YouTube video about it. Don't back out.
Michael made a YouTube video about it. Go watch it.
I am getting a little less enthusiastic about it the more I listen to it.
Yeah, tell me why. Tell me.
I do still very much enjoy it, and it deserves to be on this list. And I
Right.
probably wouldn't have voted for anything else to be album of the month. But there are parts of it that feel a little too like appealing to the pop ear just to appeal to the pop ear, not because that's really the music that they wanted to make.
That is something that I think the metal scene has been trending towards more and more lately, especially with
Yeah.
the explosion of bands. I mean, Ghost is like an old reference, but
Right,
I guess
yeah.
is it Spirit Box? Is that the one that
Just
everyone
any
is
of
like?
them, just
I
I
don't
don't know,
even know,
man.
man.
I think
Their
this is like
style.
a sad thing for you to say, considering that was the whole point of this album, is for them to make the music that they have been wanting to make.
Yeah,
like,
I
her in the-
only felt that way about a couple of tracks, but it was kind of distracting. But that
They
being
do get
said,
kind of hooky and repetitive. I get what you're saying.
But that being said, it's still an incredible album.
Oh, yeah.
I still, like I said, I wouldn't replace it on this list. I just don't know if I'm gonna like ask me like right after it came out, I might have been like, this is album of the year, high contender. But it might. I'm probably not gonna back it in the final debate at this
Damn.
point. But I mean, if we went with it, I'm not mad at it. Like it's
Yeah.
like it's a great album. But
It's so cool. It's so
yeah.
vicious and so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a great example of
I don't know.
post metal too. Even though we
Yeah.
just, I guess, had like a moment of digging and talking about like the cons and things we didn't like about this album. It is a really good example of making metal and not specifically doing like black metal or death metal or doom
Yeah,
metal
yeah.
or thrash metal. It kind of does its own thing, but still
Yeah.
within the genre and explores a few different sounds too.
Yeah, in terms of like popular things you'd compare it to, Deftones.
Yeah.
If Deftones has been having a moment. If you like Deftones and you've been riding the wave, you have to check this out if you haven't already.
Cool.
One of the best vocal performances, if not the best, of the whole year.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Phenomenal.
fucking incredible, beginning to end.
Get
Yeah,
this woman
for-
some lozenges.
If you're still one of those fucking people who says, women don't do metal, you gotta listen to this. It's crazy. And
If you say that, why are you listening to this?
Right.
Why are you
Yeah.
here?
Go fuck yourself.
some people
Unfollow
still,
us?
Some people still subliminally let that affect their
Yeah.
thinking,
No,
even
that's
if
true.
they
For
don't
sure.
say it. But,
Absolutely.
This album is a perfect counter example to that.
Hell yeah.
I mean, even though I just dunked on the songwriting of like 2 of like the 11 tracks, it's generally extremely solid. It's it's got that like kind of a Deftonesy like wall of guitars, and its lyrics are, like you said, absolutely vicious at the point of being like gruesome and like, should I even be listening to this?
Yeah.
Which
kind
is
of
what
thing.
you should feel after listening to any good metal album.
Yeah,
Right.
In my
absolutely.
opinion.
Yeah, it
Discomfort.
is-
Yeah.
You're
it is-
challenged.
Am I on a list now? Is this?
It is the spring completely like letting loose that has been compressed by years of just being the kind of high in agreeableness person who just lets bad shit happen to them.
Yeah, which I think many women can relate to.
Yeah. So,
If you've been waiting for someone to like get in a fight with you on the street so you can just like let it all out,
Yeah. Fight
this
Club.
is what happens.
Yeah.
Fight Club.
I've been working on some shit. Yeah.
And that's kind of a similar, I think, message behind Violence by Truck Violence.
This one, I re-listened to Violence today as well. This one goes off. This one's strong for me.
Yeah.
This one's strong for me.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
This was another
Very cool.
Yes,
I
this.
like it here right now.
No.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. I was gonna say this was the other kind of country influenced post-hardcore album on our list. It's crazy that we have two of these on the list.
It's like when we never seem to find it that often anyway.
but this is post-hardcore in the more contemporary way.
Yes.
This
Whereas,
is-
yeah.
No, go ahead.
Whereas the Shallow Water is post-hardcore in like an 80s way. This is post-hardcore in like a fucking like
Law
you're-
Dispute.
Yeah.
Kind of,
I mean, yeah, they said like on their Bandcamp, which is something that I kind of don't like that much. Like, oh, for fans of like Chat Pile and who else?
But like that's for real. If you have
Show Me the
like
Body.
this.
right?
Yeah, they just like listed off bands, and I'm like, oh,
I don't
man.
hate that. Is you gotta
kinda
you
don't
gotta draw people in somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but like,
And it does a lot. They do kind of toe their way into a lot of
I mean, it
those
is a little
styles,
annoying
but,
if you do shit like for fans of the Beatles.
there was,
Okay,
yeah,
well,
there was
everyone
like
likes
this
the Beatles.
one ad that we were getting on like Instagram, and it was this guy, and it was like, if you like Radiohead, you're gonna
Okay,
love
that's
my music.
annoying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that just
That is
made
annoying.
So I don't know. I kind of hold it in a similar.
Well, I think it
Yeah,
can be
whatever.
cheesy if it feels like they're trying to be that
I
big
think-
artist.
I
yeah,
think-
I don't.
think
I
they're
don't
the
think
best.
that they
But-
they are. This is such a well done, genuine. I love this album.
It's so cool.
much.
It's
so
just
that's not me.
Yeah.
hating on it. Yeah,
No, not at all. Just
just a gripe with the Bandcamp.
inquiring. Yeah.
I'm like, y'all, you didn't even have to do that.
This
Let
is
it
so
speak for
cool.
itself.
Yeah.
It's I guess it is sort of regional in its way, I guess. They're Western Canadian, so they say
Yeah.
they have Western Canadian hardcore, but it's also folk. So there's some of that as well. And they sort of talk about being from a small town and
Yeah.
the small town being left behind as people move to big cities and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And
Western Canada's cowboy country. So.
yeah, totally.
And
So
then-
it has moments of that, like this sleepy banjo, but then it goes into moments of hardcore and post-hardcore. It's
Yes,
pretty
and then
cool.
struggling too of like watching your town fall apart and being
Yeah.
like, well, do I stay or do I leave? And then if I leave, is that just me abandoning my friends and family here?
and like the
to
guilt
let
they feel
them-
for that, and
But the main focal point is addiction and how addiction sweeps into these towns when everything else leaves.
Yeah.
And wondering how much of the like your own addiction is your fault and how much of it is systemic failures that have really impacted your town and made
Right.
everyone around you also an addict. So it's like
yeah, it's just the world you grew up in.
if addiction is like striking your whole town really hard, it's like, is it really your fault that you fall into that too? So that's what the album plays with a lot, is as the person there, like it's easy on the outside looking in to be like, no, it's not your fault. That's like,
Right.
that's just a thing that is kind of a scourge that's just kind of spreading everywhere. But if you are that person, then it's like, well, could I have avoided it? Like, and obviously the album takes the point that you shouldn't feel that way, but that doesn't mean that you don't feel that way.
Well, right, and then you take your, like you said, when it is your interpersonal relationships, the emotions are a lot higher.
Yeah.
A lot more likely to feel shame, feel like, why am I like this, and all of that type of thing. It's harder to look at it objectively, and the album does a really beautiful job, I guess, at talking about that and guilt related to religion and all of it. I really enjoyed Violence, this month.
Good stuff.
I love
Yeah.
violence
and
Love
then
violence.
our
and meth.
Yeah. Our pick for August, Last Lull of the Laurel by Roxy Radcliffe, kind of had a similar story, although Violence by Truck Violence was a little more systemic, like you said.
Yeah.
Whereas
more-
Last Lull is like incredibly deeply personal. One of
Yes.
the most like personal albums that I think we covered this year. Also,
might
We
be
have
in-
another one coming up.
yeah, but this
Yeah.
one felt like reading someone's diary, or I guess someone reading her diary to you. You know,
I would say this might also be the most experimental album on the list.
highly, yeah, very, very experimental. It covers a lot of it kind of starts in more of like a psychedelic pop space, a la Animal Collective, but bigger and noisier.
Yes.
A little bit longer of tracks, and then it kind of devolves into this like internet sort of bedroom folk type of sound,
Yeah.
and it just covers like all these like personal details that the artist shares about her friends and family, and trying to decide like, does she move or does she stay? And it's very meta too. She talks, on one of the songs about like being with her girlfriend, and then later she's like, and then little did I know when I was writing the song that 3 months later we would break up, and then it was so endearing to me. After you listen to it, you feel like you have this like parasocial relationship with with the artist, because
Yeah.
you're like, oh well, now I know everything about what's been going on in your life for the past 3 months.
Yeah.
So
The kicker is all of these interactions are purely online.
yeah,
And
Yes, she is stuck living in her parents' basement.
yeah, so it's like, well, I certainly don't belong here, and I have a hard time interacting with anyone around me, but should I risk everything and move?
and maybe if I move to a city like New York City, where other like weird people exist, maybe I could find real life community. But am I even cut out for that?
It's also like some of the most productive artists that we talk about are like have a sort of living situation like living in their parents' basement, because it's like you gotta work like full-time or more than full-time to even get by, like
Yeah.
renting in a big city.
I think Roxy also, since we put this out, has already put out another album.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's so there's plenty of arguments on the against side as well, but yeah, there's a lot of people who are doing the whole like, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, like in this case, are doing the whole like, I think it's called what, like hikikomori, or like the
Yeah.
like neat kind of life where you're spending a lot of your social interaction comes from the internet, and you are kind of isolated from your real like physical community. And this album is a tell-all like diary of that experience.
And it's crazy too that you can have that sort of lifestyle, and because of things like Discord, you can
Yeah.
still have these incredibly
Yep.
rich, personal, deep, intimate connections with other
Yep.
people that are. I mean, this person has more friends than I do.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, in a lot
It's
of
as
ways,
real as anything else.
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, like a richer social life than most of us have. But
Yeah.
for sure.
But it's not fully disconnected from that community, because like you said, this thing is also kind of sound collage-y, also like wall of soundy, and a lot of the things that make up that collage are pulled from this like little town, I think in somewhere in the South. And it's you got some like sounds of the countryside and country music and like new metal and stuff
Yeah.
happening here as well.
She has a whole list of influences that are like Foo Fighters, Three Doors Down, and then it's also like, stuff like I said, like Animal Collective
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's also kind of all over the place, and it starts off really noisy, but I think it's interesting kind of after you break through that sort of shell of sound, you get into the more vulnerable, expressive stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So really, really great. I'm glad that this won our album of the month for August. And then in September, we had Viewfinder by Wendy Eisenberg. This was another deeply personal release, although not quite so focused on relationships, more talking about health issues, and specifically the artist's eye condition and her LASIK surgery that she underwent.
Yeah, it's about it talks about the complicated feelings that you have when you've had reduced vision for your whole life, not necessarily your whole life, but I think for like a lot of their
Right,
life.
because I think she, yeah.
And and leading up to a point where they have this fascination with like, how much am I missing out on? And then they get the LASIK surgery, fixes all of the problems kind of in a sweeping way, kind of like a way that they never could have expected before at a certain point. And then they see the world the way that most other people with, like quote unquote perfect vision or whatever, see it. And that's it. So it's
Right.
like everything, like they had all these ideas of like, well, this must be how beautiful the world is, or like how everyday things look to normal people. And then they get that vision back and see those everyday things and are simultaneously amazed and disappointed in a
Right.
really interesting way.
Because it's like whatever your expectation was, it wasn't going to be accurate necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
So-
it's like you could expect
Yeah,
everything to
complicated.
look the way that it looks when someone's on like LSD.
Right.
And when that doesn't happen, you're like, oh man.
If you're like
But-
grateful and like
yeah.
for modern medicine and stuff, but
Yeah.
at the same time, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well.
This
That's
also talks about. Oh man, hang on, I had it 2
It's
seconds
jazz.
ago.
Yeah,
It
it's
is
I don't know,
jazz.
we haven't
Thank you.
really been
Soft
clear
sort
about
of
how it sounds.
folk and jazz.
Yeah.
It's very vibrant.
Yeah.
Very beautiful.
Yes, it talks about the process too of healing, like kind of having to get worse for a second too, because it's like after you get this surgery, you are effectively blind
you're
for a
fucked
few
up.
days.
And the
Yeah.
terror during the surgery.
During
Yes.
the surgery is
Yeah.
you have to actively participate in a way that is true with very few other surgery. I guess brain surgery is like this too.
Oh,
Brain
God.
surgery is fucking
That's
weird.
like traumatic.
Yeah. But you do have to participate in LASIK because
Wow.
it doesn't really like hurt. So they can keep you awake for the most part, from what I understand. Is they can keep you awake, and they have to keep you awake
You have to
because
look
you
around.
have to direct your eyes. They're like, now look at this point, now look at this point, and then you just get this blinding light. And I guess if you fuck up and look the wrong way, it can really cause damage.
oh my god.
So
Like I could never. I'm like too dumb. I'd be like, which right?
yeah.
Yeah, so this album was really beautiful. We cover some jazz sometimes. I'm really glad that a jazz album snuck its way onto our album of the month list here.
Definitely a genre we could do a better job of.
Yeah, well, we had a
We
few
covered
on
some
our
good
list
stuff.
for this year, but
Yeah.
I was noticing when we were making this album, the list of all the albums of the month, it's like, oh yeah, this one just didn't quite win. Like, Bingo
Yeah.
Fury didn't quite win, and there
Yeah,
were a couple
yeah.
little jazzy type things. I wanted to.
Oxa was also a very good like jazz rap.
Yeah.
Heavy on the jazz though.
Yeah.
But no, Viewfinder was wonderful. Glad to get some jazz on the list.
Yes. And then in October we had Box of Dark Roses by Mope Grooves.
Wow, talk about emotionally heavy, vulnerable.
Yeah.
When you said that about the Roxy Radcliffe, I mean that one certainly is as well, but this one I'm like,
This,
it's very,
this is like a very fully realized work, similar, well, not so similar to the Lolina. The artist, like the vocalist, the girl that wrote this, she died, and then this is the release, I think, a few months later, and she has this whole document detailing all of her thoughts and just lots of information behind the songs.
Yes, extensive liner notes.
Yeah, I think this album is a very sweet, authentic, hopeful answer to a lot of like the chaos
Sorry,
that we're
don't
seeing
unplug
right
anything.
now. And it kind of offers like a way forward a little bit.
Yeah, and it's like I don't know, it makes these points about broader societal things and how fucked up it all is, but at the same time, like, it's very strong in the found family sort of
Yeah,
thing,
like,
and like
look at
the tenderness
what's in
and the
front of
love
you.
about being queer and just being with the people who understand you, and that being important, you know, what's right in front of
Yes.
you.
Yeah,
There's-
It's
yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And about grief and yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I mean, I don't really. It's just extremely well put and analytical and tender at the same time. I really loved
We
it.
can talk about how it sounds a little bit too. It's like Baroque pop-ish.
Yeah.
I would say it is
Some post-punk,
I would say
little
yeah,
twinkly.
post-punk. I would
Yeah.
say it's fairly accessible some strong pop songwriting. It is a long record, but
Yeah,
it
it
doesn't
has, like-
feel long because it's segmented into all of these little songs that are each pretty consumable.
Yeah.
And it's all very pretty and sunshiny, and if you didn't know it was fucked up, you might not even notice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They got like big samples in there too.
yeah,
So-
but that's kind of the idea here. Is it's like everything's fucked, but these people are like all I have, and so it's about those people. It's not about everything being fucked up.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, that emphasis on community is so important, and this album just came out at the perfect time too. In late October, kind of right before the election, and all of the bad news kind of started flooding in.
But this album's point is there's a subset of people who are going to get shafted no matter who wins elections.
Absolutely.
Well, right, and it's like
Absolutely.
it's been like this kind of
And
for
so,
a lot of
yeah.
people the whole time.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so
yeah.
they've already just had to they've had nothing. They would have nothing and nowhere to live and no food to eat if it wasn't for their community. So they already have to rely on the community, and there's nobody else who's coming to save them. And but that community is beautiful and it's sustaining them.
And
Yes.
I think we mentioned the liner notes already, but I'll emphasize it again. You have to go read them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, the album is it has a very interesting theory as to like what art should do, and especially what money made through art should do. And the liner notes go into that, but it is very like revolutionary even in the way it's implemented. I think everything in it got donated to like a fund for like people of color who are victims of like sexual assault or something, like a very specific cause that is explained very specifically in the liner notes as I don't know. You have
Why
to
it's
go read it
important.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. All right, and then obviously November, decapitation of the food court. We talked about
just
that
talked about it.
earlier.
You know
Super
that.
fucking
one.
You know that
We're
one.
old
You know
friends.
We're old friends with that.
All right, guys, what are we thinking?
Album of the year?
God.
Out of all of these?
Sorry.
Oh
I'm
my
gonna
god.
unplug
Make sure you
everything.
leave a comment about your album of the year.
Yeah, leave a comment about
Leave a
your album.
comment about your album of the year, and we'll
big-
like it, and we'll reply to it.
Good albums that didn't make the cut super duper quick.
Oh, yeah.
Mamma League Vita Blue.
Yeah. Mamma League.
Uniform.
Oh, Uniform.
Impossible Light, Uboa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So there's a lot that we didn't put on here that I think could be near the top of the list and place above albums that are on this list. You
Yeah.
got to keep in mind some months were stronger than others. We had some months where it was a really close
That's
shave
true.
between two. Some weeks where it was a really close shave
Well,
between
and so
two.
some of those albums will very likely end up on our 50 album list, which we'll
Yeah.
have a video
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that
Our
coming out
overall
soon
list
as well.
Yeah, so some of these might
Keep an eye out.
You might look at that and it's like that's not the top 12 I remember, but
Yeah.
it's
Be sure to check out the list, y'all.
Yeah, we're gonna do that in a little while.
Are we picking the album live, or are we gonna wait until the
Nah,
list?
we'll pick it here.
Okay, exciting.
Let's duke it out. What are y'all's top
God.
picks for the year? For me, Truck Violence is up there. I really like Lolina as well.
yeah. Lolina
to
would
like-
be a contender for me.
I really like Lolina, but I don't think it's album of the
Yeah,
year.
I don't think so.
I don't listen to Lolina, and I'm like, this captures the like music of 2024. You know, it was like one of my favorites, but I again from like an editorial kind of standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd agree with Violence by Truck Violence. I'd say You Could Do It Tonight. Couch
Yeah.
Slut is a
like
good
You Could Do It
one.
Tonight.
Box of Dark Boxes.
Box
Yeah,
of Dark
Julia's,
Roses is highest
Julia's
for
gonna
me.
Julia's gonna
Box
go
of
for
Dark
the Mope
Roses.
Grooves because she loved it. So
I did
love
love it. I mean,
Mope
I'm
Grooves,
I
you
loved
know,
it
I'm
too,
just kind
but
of spreading.
that's gonna be Julia's hill to die on.
Right, man. Thanks.
I'm
Damn.
kind of leaning Box of Dark Roses as well.
I don't hate that pick at all, but I would put that in the upper division of these for me. I would say like Shallow Water, Lolina, and probably I Willie Rodriguez because I even threw that.
I
in.
think it would be
Yeah,
funny if we picked Weezer's Blue Album so that we could say Weezer's Blue Album was our album of the year.
like the way Video Game Donkey's like Video Game of the Year every year is Super Mario Brothers 2.
Yes.
Right.
Well, that's
Always
also
Weezer Blue
a
album.
strong pick. That is also kind of not relevant, but is a common sentiment, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Very
Wendy
real
Eisenberg
thing.
I would put in the upper division too.
Man.
I think
Yeah.
that's.
We just listed all of them again.
Yeah, well, we all picked different ones.
all of them.
Decapitation of the food court. Also, that might be a little bit of like recency bias. I don't know, guys. Do we have to pick one? I want to review some of these. I mean, I listened to all of them, but some of them I could really probably give another.
It'd be
pass
so
through.
funny if we picked one and we were like, guys, I regret that so much. It should not be
Right. I feel like we're putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to make a decision right now, and would it be
Well,
anticlimactic if we backed out?
Don't we have
No,
to?
we have to.
Wait,
We have
don't
to. We have to pick one. Yeah, we have to pick one.
This was
we,
the goal.
We
We set
literally
out.
planned this for a few days.
Right.
So,
we had a meeting about this. Why are you trying to back out now?
Yeah. So.
Because it's hard.
Okay.
It
Okay,
came to
okay,
us
okay.
so easily
So what
last
were-
year, which
so-
is what makes
Michael,
this so much.
So what were people's semifinals? Let's see what everyone.
We
has
just
in
talked
common.
about our
No.
semifinals.
Let's all pick like 2.
Yeah, everyone pick like 2
Okay,
or
everyone
3.
pick like 2.
I'm gonna do Box of Dark Roses, and you could do it tonight.
I am also doing Box of Dark Roses, and you could do it tonight.
Oh shit! Okay, that's 2 for Mope Grooves and 2 for Couch Slut.
I am gonna lock in Viewfinder and Shallow Water.
God damn it.
I'm gonna do Violence by Drug Violence and Mope Grooves.
Okay, so it's Mope Grooves.
Yay!
We did it.
Wow. Congratulations to Mope Grooves.
Album of
We
the
did
year.
it, Joe.
Box of Dark Roses.
We did it, Joe.
We did it, Joe.
We
All right.
You know, well deserved.
Very
I
well
think,
deserved.
yeah. I already expressed how I feel about this,
Yeah.
but I will say
Strong,
it again.
relevant, beautiful.
Yeah,
Sorry, say
strong,
it again.
relevant, and beautiful.
Sorry,
We
I
said
cut you
it.
off. I didn't mean to. I was just.
No, I mean, we said in October when we did the album of the month podcast that we thought that it would be our album of the year.
Yeah, we were like, wow, what the fuck, guys? This is
So,
That was a
is so
heavy
good.
episode. I think
Yeah.
it was beautiful. Good
Yeah.
discussion that
and
week.
here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are.
we are.
Well, congratulations, big congratulations to Mope Grooves
Big,
for Album of
absolutely.
the Year 2024.
Loved it.
And congratulations also to Decapitation of the Food Court for winning Album of the
Yeah.
Month.
Yeah.
So they
I don't
get a that's also a big win.
Yeah.
I mean,
They
yeah,
give
all
us
of
a
these,
kiss.
all
One
of these
of
are solid. There's not any
11.
of these that are like
No stinkers,
no,
of course.
No
no
stickers.
shitters allowed.
No,
Um,
and
Okay.
so, well, I mean, thank you guys for listening along. If you haven't listened to any of the albums we talked about today, I think Michael's going to post them all in the description
yeah,
as well.
I'll have
so-
a detailed list and even things that we mentioned in passing.
Yeah,
as
listen to all of it.
references.
If you missed any of it, it's all worth talking about.
And come back in a week or so, and we'll have a full video for our list of 50 albums that
Yeah.
were worth checking out this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Any other closing thoughts? What do you have to say?
Cool. Yeah, I mean, even though it's not what I picked, I do like Mope Grooves, and
Sorry,
I could
Michael.
see how it's
He
see how
said
it's
cool.
emblematic of where we're at, and
Yeah.
that's I know that was a big part of our decision of what we picked last year.
Yeah, I feel like having an album that kind of encapsulates the year
Having
and
relevancy
Yeah.
be a
Yeah.
qualifier
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
this also kind of sets you up for the future. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would like to see this kind of
Intention.
sentiment forward.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
We're setting intentions
Setting intention.
and reflecting all at
love
once here at Outside Noise.
Have a happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah. Happy holidays.
Happy newest year. The
And-
newest year
Happy New
yet.
Year.
And let us know
2025.
and let us know how stupid we are and how we missed like that one album that totally should have been it.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
It might be Mamalik, and we did mention it, so you don't
Yell
have
at
to
us.
yell
What
at
did
us
it
for that
lose to
one.
again?
That was Roxy Ratcliffe, right? August?
I think
Yes.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Another
That was an
win for
interesting
women.
episode too. Go check that one out.
Yeah,
I don't
conflict.
know if we were doing YouTube videos there yet, but that might just be on Spotify. But go check out that podcast because that was an interesting one.
Well-
I was big on the Mamalik train and did not win
And-
my fight.
And if you just can't get enough of us talking about music, we do talk about albums every single week on our Patreon.
There's
so
a
you
free
can check that
trial.
out
There's
as
a free
well.
trial.
There's a free trial,
Free
so you
trial.
can dig
You can just do
in,
the free
Yeah.
trial and listen to all of them.
binge
and
it for
quit.
free.
dig through
Yeah.
our crates at
Yeah.
2x speed.
Woo.
And thank you.
Yeah, thanks
Thanks.
everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Great year.
Bye.